300 million years ago, this breathing world forged dragons. Not the mythical fire-breathers of legend, but creatures of chitin and wing. Predators with eyes that could count the scales on your skin from 30 meters away. They ruled the skies like nothing before or since, and they were fueled by a planet that was, quite literally, a different world. Welcome to the Carboniferous Period. This isn't just deep time, it's the Earth you never knew. A planet where the air was a sculptor, not just of life, but of titans. Where the atmosphere itself, pushed to its biological limits, created monsters that should never have existed. This is a world before dinosaurs, before mammals, before flowers or grass or birds. A world where arthropods, insects, spiders, millipedes became the dominant life forms on land, and they grew to sizes that would break every rule of modern biology. Here's the impossible truth. For millions of years, Earth's atmosphere contained up to 35% oxygen. Some estimates push it even higher, possibly 40%. Compare that to our 21% today. That's almost double the oxygen concentration. If you lit a match in this prehistoric forest, the very air would explode into flames. Wildfires would rage with supernatural intensity, consuming everything in their path. This wasn't just a breathable world, it was a highly combustible one, a tinderbox waiting for a spark. So how did this happen? How did Earth become an oxygen furnace? It starts with wood. Around 360 million years ago, plants evolved lignin, the compound that makes wood woody, rigid, strong. Trees could finally grow tall, competing for sunlight in dense forests that covered the supercontinent of Pangaea. But here's the problem. Nothing had evolved to eat wood yet. No fungi, no bacteria, no termites. When these massive trees died, they simply fell over and stayed there for millions upon millions of years. Dead trees piled up in enormous drifts, buried under swamps and sediment. All that carbon locked away underground, and all that photosynthesis kept pumping oxygen into the atmosphere with nothing to balance it out. The result? An atmosphere supercharged beyond anything in Earth's history. And for arthropods, creatures that breathe through simple tubes in their bodies, this was an evolutionary cheat code. To understand why this matters, you need to understand how insects breathe, because they don't have lungs like us. Insects breathe through spiracles, tiny holes along their bodies that connect to a network of tubes called trachea. Air diffuses directly to their tissues through these tubes. It's simple, it's passive, and in normal atmospheric conditions, it's limiting. The problem with this system is physics. The bigger an insect gets, the longer those tubes need to be, and the harder it becomes for oxygen to reach the deepest tissues. It's like trying to breathe through a straw. The longer the straw, the harder you have to work. This is why modern insects stay small. In our 21% oxygen atmosphere, there's a hard ceiling on insect size. Most can't grow larger than your thumb without suffocating. But in the Carboniferous, that ceiling shattered. With 35% oxygen saturating the air, diffusion became efficient again. Oxygen could travel through longer tubes, reach deeper tissues, power bigger muscles. The physical limitations disappeared. And when you remove the limitations on arthropods, evolution goes wild. Suddenly, a dragonfly doesn't need to stay palm-sized. A millipede doesn't need to be something you can step over. A scorpion doesn't need to hide under rocks. In the oxygen furnace, they became titans. Meet Meganeura monii, the apex predator of the Carboniferous skies. A dragonfly with a wingspan of 75 centimeters. That's 2.5 feet, longer than your arm. Some specimens may have reached 90 centimeters. This wasn't just big. This was a flying nightmare built by an alien atmosphere. Let me put this in perspective. A modern dragonfly weighs about half a gram. Meganeura would have weighed an estimated 150 grams. That's 300 times heavier. It's the difference between a house cat and a Bengal tiger. And unlike modern dragonflies, which are already incredible hunters, Meganeura had the size to be a true apex predator. Those compound eyes, each one contained over 30,000 individual lenses, giving it nearly 360-degree vision and the ability to detect movement from 30 meters away. The wings were masterpieces of natural engineering, transparent with a delicate network of veins providing structural support, but strong enough to generate the lift needed to carry that massive body. Studies suggest Meganeura could reach flight speeds of 70 kilometers per hour, faster than most modern dragonflies. And those mandibles, serrated, powerful, designed to punch through the chitinous exoskeletons of other giant arthropods. When Meganeura caught you, there was no escape. But Meganeura wasn't alone in this world of giants. The Carboniferous forest floor was a crawling nightmare. While Meganeura ruled the air, the ground belonged to even larger horrors. Arthropleura, a distant relative of modern millipedes, was the largest land arthropod that ever lived. At 2.5 meters long and up to half a meter wide, it was the size of a car. Imagine a millipede you could ride. Its segmented body was armored in thick chitin plates, making it nearly invulnerable to predators. Unlike centipedes, Arthropleura was likely herbivorous, feeding on the rotting vegetation and primitive plants that carpeted the swamp floors. But its size alone made it a force of nature. When it moved, the ground trembled. And it wasn't alone. Pulmonoscorpius kirktanensis, the giant scorpion, reached lengths of 70 centimeters. That's longer than your forearm, with a stinger that could deliver venom to prey the size of small reptiles. These weren't desert-dwelling scorpions, you know. These were swamp apex predators, lurking in the damp undergrowth. Giant spiders, their webs stretched between trees, waiting for flying insects the size of birds. Megarachne, initially thought to be the largest spider ever, turned out to be a sea scorpion, but true giant spiders did exist, their leg spans rivaling dinner plates. And everywhere, smaller giants. Cockroaches the length of your hand, mayflies with wings like sails, prehistoric dragonfly nymphs the size of lobsters lurking in the murky waters. This was an alien Earth, a planet where the rules had been rewritten, where the bottom of the food chain had become the top. Imagine you're Hylonomus, one of the first reptiles to walk on land. You're small, about the size of a modern lizard. You've just emerged from the safety of a hollow log, searching for food in the early morning mist. The forest is alive with sound, the constant drone of wings, the rustling of giant millipedes in the undergrowth. You're nervous, alert, every sense heightened. And then you hear it. A change in the ambient buzz, a deeper frequency, getting closer. Meganeura doesn't hunt like modern dragonflies, which mostly snatch mosquitoes from the air. It's an active pursuit predator, hunting anything that moves. And those compound eyes have spotted you from 30 meters away through the dense vegetation. You freeze. Evolution hasn't taught you to fear things from above yet. That mistake will cost you. The sound intensifies, the air pressure changes, and suddenly, a blur of motion, wings that span longer than you are tall. The world becomes chaos. You try to run, but you're too slow, your legs too new to land, your brain too primitive to process the threat. And then, the vice grip. Mandibles close around your body with crushing force. The ground falls away as you're lifted into the air, your first flight and your last. Meganeura returns to its perch in the canopy, where it will feed in peace, safe from the ground-dwelling giants below. This was life in the Dragon Age. Brutal, alien, magnificent. Every creature pushed to its extreme, every advantage maximized by an atmosphere that had never existed before and would never exist again. But what the atmosphere gave, the atmosphere took away. Around 300 million years ago, at the peak of the Carboniferous, Earth was a finely balanced system. The forests pumped out oxygen, the dead trees locked away carbon, and life thrived in ways it never had before. But balance is fragile, and Earth was about to tip. The first sign of change came from below. After millions of years, fungi finally evolved the enzymes needed to break down lignin. Wood-rotting mushrooms appeared. Bacteria learned to decompose what had been indestructible. Suddenly, dead trees started to rot. The massive carbon sink that had built up over 60 million years began to release its stores. Carbon returned to the atmosphere as CO2, and oxygen production slowed. At the same time, the continents were shifting. Pangea was forming, bringing all of Earth's land masses together. The climate changed. The vast swamp forests began to dry out. Wildfires, supercharged by the oxygen-rich air, raged across entire continents, consuming the very forests that had created the giants. Volcanic activity increased. Massive eruptions pumped sulfur and carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, further disrupting the delicate balance. And then came the collapse. Oxygen levels began to crash from 35% down to 25%, then 20%, then 15%, lower than today's levels, all in just a few million years, a geological instant. For creatures adapted to a supercharged atmosphere, this was a death sentence. Meganeura was built for an oxygen-rich world. Its massive body needed constant fuel. Its powerful flight muscles required abundant oxygen. But in thinning air, every flight became a struggle. Every hunt became exhausting. The giants couldn't adapt fast enough. Their very size, their greatest advantage, became their fatal weakness. Arthropleura grew sluggish, unable to power its enormous body on reduced oxygen. Pulmonoscorpius found its prey too quick, its own movements too slow. The giant spiders starved as their flying prey disappeared. One by one, the titans of the Carboniferous vanished from the fossil record. The Dragon Age ended, not with fire, but with suffocation. The Dragon Age reminds us of a profound truth. Life doesn't just adapt to its planet, it is sculpted by it. Change the air, and you change everything. Change the temperature, and you rewrite the rules. Change the chemistry of the atmosphere, and entire dynasties of creatures rise and fall. The colossal insects of the Carboniferous are more than just prehistoric curiosities. They're a testament to how fragile life can be, how interconnected everything is, how a planet's atmosphere isn't just the air we breathe, it's the artist, and we are the clay. For 60 million years, arthropods ruled Earth. They were the pinnacle of evolution, the apex predators, the giants. They seemed invincible. But they weren't adapting to Earth. They were adapted to a specific version of Earth, and when that version changed, they vanished. It's a lesson written in stone, in coal seams, in the fossilized impressions of wings that once cast shadows like eagles. The planet shapes life, but the planet never stops changing. And those who can't change with it fade into the archive of extinction. But when the air thinned and the giants fell, something new was already waiting. Creatures that didn't need high oxygen to grow massive. Creatures with a revolutionary breathing system, lungs that could pull oxygen even from thin air. With bodies built not for hunting, but for something even more remarkable: survival. They were called Dicynodonts, and they would become the most successful land animals Earth had ever seen, covering the planet in numbers that wouldn't be matched until the age of mammals. Imagine herds stretching to the horizon, Millions upon millions of these bizarre reptiles, each with a beak like a turtle and tusks like a walrus. They survived when the hunters died. They thrived when predators starved. In the next video, you'll enter the Triassic, a world recovering from the worst mass extinction in history, a world where 90% of all species had vanished. And you'll meet the creatures that inherited this broken planet. The survivors, the rebuilders, the ones who proved that in the game of evolution, sometimes the meek really do inherit the earth.